There are decisions being made behind the scenes that could completely change the direction of this franchise, not just for the next season, but for years to come. And believe me, one specific play in this draft could be the difference between falling short again, or finally becoming a true Super Bowl contender again. But before revealing what's really happening, be sure to click the like button right now if you truly believe this team is heading in the right direction. And I want to see something from you in the comments. Right, I believe in the Ravens will come back stronger. Let's see how many true optimists we have in this fan base. Because what's coming, you won't want to miss. Now let's get straight into what really matters. The Ravens entered this second day with a very clear mindset, and it all starts with something Eric DeCosta made crystal clear recently. The chances of landing high-quality talent drop significantly after the fourth round. That's not just a casual statement, it's a strategy signal. And when you combine that with the fact that Baltimore is holding 8 picks in the 5th round or later, including 4 in the 5th alone, you start to see the bigger picture forming. This is a front office that understands value, but more importantly, understands timing. And that's why the idea of staying passive didn't make much sense here. Instead, the approach shifts toward aggression, calculated aggression. In this scenario, the Ravens make a move. They trade up from pick 45 to pick 36 in a deal with the Las Vegas Raiders, giving up 2 fifth-round picks and getting a 6th in return. It's a 9-spot jump, and it's not random. It's targeted. It's intentional. It's about going after a player they clearly value. That player? Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. Now this is where things get really interesting. Boston brings a combination that the Ravens offense has been missing, a true size-speed presence on the outside. We're talking about a receiver over 6 feet 2 inches, around 220 pounds, with the ability to wing contested catches and control his body at a high level. His hands are reliable, his production speaks for itself, and there's still room to grow, especially in route running. Let's look at the numbers because they matter here. He posted 881 yards this past season with an average of 14.2 yards per catch. Across the last 2 seasons combined, he totaled 125 receptions, over 1,700 yards, and 20 touchdowns, with only 5 drops. That level of consistency is not something you overlook. And maybe the most important part of this entire equation is the fit. Pairing Denzel Boston with Zay Flowers creates a dynamic contrast that defenses hate dealing with. You've got Flowers, the explosive, smaller, quick-twitch playmaker at around 5 feet 9 inches, and then Boston, the bigger, physical presence who can dominate in tight coverage. It's a balance that opens up the entire field. The Ravens clearly understand that if they wait too long, that kind of receiver won't be there. And while tight end is also a need, the belief internally, and this is key, is that you can still find quality tight ends later in the draft. Wide receivers with this profile, not so much. So this move isn't just about getting a player. It's about understanding positional value, draft depth, and roster construction all at once. And that's only part of the story developing here. And continuing with everything that's unfolding inside the Baltimore Ravens war room, the strategy doesn't stop with that aggressive move for Denzel Boston. Because if you look at how this front office is structuring this draft, it's not just about flashy picks, it's about building stability where it matters most. Now we shift into round 3. And this is where the Ravens go exactly where many expected them to go. There's no surprise here, no smokescreen. This is about addressing a critical need with precision. With the 80th overall pick, the selection is Sam Heck, the center out of Kansas State. And this might quietly end up being one of the most important moves of the entire draft. Sam Heck is widely viewed as one of the most pro-ready centers available. While other prospects at the position bring upside, they also come with concerns. Some lack strength, others are coming off serious injuries. Heck, on the other hand, offers something the Ravens value deeply, reliability from day one. He's an athletic player with strong fundamentals, excellent technique, and a natural feel for positioning. He consistently finds himself in the right spot, and even though he doesn't have elite arm length, that limitation is far less impactful at the center position than it would be elsewhere on the line. What really stands out is how he maximizes everything he has, his core strength, his awareness, and his ability to anchor. And when you start to picture the offensive line as a whole, things get very interesting. You potentially slot Heck right into the middle, with Vita Yawan to his right and John Simpson to his left. Suddenly, what was once a concern becomes a strength again. This is exactly the kind of structure you need if your goal is to protect a $52 million per year quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Last season made it clear, keeping him upright is non-negotiable. That first-round decision to invest in the offensive line now starts to connect with this third-round move. It's not isolated. It's a coordinated effort to rebuild dominance in the trenches. But here's where things open up even more. Because beyond these selections, there are still several names that remain firmly on the radar for the Ravens as day 2 continues. One of them is Eli Stowers, a tight end out of Vanderbilt who is considered the best receiving tight end in this class. If Baltimore decides to stay at pick 45, or even trade back slightly, he could be right there. And given how the board is shaping up, that's a very realistic scenario. Then there's Chris Bell, a wide receiver out of Louisville. He's coming off a major injury, yes, but the upside is undeniable. Over 6 feet 2 inches, explosive, and a strong athlete, he fits the mold of what the Ravens seem to be targeting in this draft cycle. Another name generating buzz is Cade McDonald, a defensive tackle from Ohio State. If he somehow slips to 45, it would be hard to pass on him. He's viewed as the best run-stuffing nose tackle in the class, and we know Baltimore has already shown interest. And then there's a particularly intriguing option, Jacob Rodriguez. Not the biggest positional need, especially with Roquan under contract and Teddy Buchanan returning from injury, but in terms of pure talent, he might be too good to ignore. Many believed he had first-round potential, and landing him here would be a classic best player available move. Finally, keep an eye on Mason Thomas, an edge rusher who has already been considered in multiple mock scenarios for this team. With current depth including Mike Green, Tavius Robinson, and Trey Hendrickson, adding another piece could strengthen that rotation significantly. And this is exactly where things could take another unexpected turn for the Baltimore Ravens, because if there's one thing we've learned from how this front office operates, it's that they are always thinking one step ahead of everyone else in the draft room. Up to this point, the approach has been clear: be aggressive when necessary, secure high-value talent early, and build a foundation that protects your most important asset while giving him better weapons. But now, as the board continues to shift and more prospects come off, the Ravens are entering a phase where flexibility becomes their biggest weapon. And here's what's fascinating about this situation. Because of that earlier trade, moving up for Denzel Boston, the Ravens gave up 2 fifth-round picks. That means the margin for error later in the draft becomes smaller. Every remaining pick carries more weight. Every decision has to be even sharper. But at the same time, this is where Baltimore historically thrives. Finding value where others don't. Identifying players that fit their system perfectly, even if they're not the biggest names on the board. And with the way this draft is unfolding, there's still a real opportunity to walk away from day 2 with a roster that looks significantly stronger across multiple positions. Now think about the offensive identity that's starting to take shape here. You add a physical wide receiver like Boston to complement Zay Flowers. You reinforce the interior offensive line with Sam Heck. You already made a major investment in protection with Vina Yawan. This is a clear message. The Ravens are building an offense that can be both explosive and durable. And that balance is what separates good teams from championship contenders. Because it's not just about scoring points, it's about controlling games, sustaining drives, and keeping Lamar Jackson in a position where he doesn't have to do everything on his own. Last season showed exactly what happens when that balance isn't there. This time, they're making sure it is. But there's still one layer missing. And that's how they choose to close out this phase of the draft. Do they go after another offensive weapon, maybe secure that tight end like Eli Stowers if he's still available? Do they shift focus back to the defense and grab someone like Cade McDonald to reinforce the run defense? Or do they take a bold approach and select the best player available, even if it's not an immediate need, like Jacob Rodriguez? Each of these paths tells a different story about how the Ravens see themselves heading into the season. If they double down on offense, it signals full commitment to surrounding Lamar with as much talent as possible. If they pivot to defense, it shows confidence in the current offensive pieces and a desire to maintain balance on both sides of the ball. And if they